Today is the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas. The 13th century theologian showed the Catholic faith agrees with philosophy and all other branches of knowledge. St. Thomas joined the Dominican order and later wrote many books, including Summa Theologiae. He died in the year 1274. Around 300 years later, he was named a doctor of the church. And joining us now is Father Thomas Petri, president of the Dominican House of Studies in Washington, D.C. Father, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on today. Let's talk a little bit more about St. Thomas Aquinas and what drew him to the Dominican order.
Thanks for having me, Tracy. We love talking about St. Thomas, especially on his feast day today. St. Thomas, was born in the first quarter of the 13th century. The Dominican order was really quite new when he joined it, only 30 years old. He came from a rather wealthy family, a family of nobility. His parents wanted him to be a Benedictine, which was kind of the religious order of his day with a lot of influence. But he saw these young Dominican friars, this ragtag band of upstarts, living the vow of poverty and preaching the gospel. He was attracted by St. Dominic. And so he joined the order. His parents, his mother especially, did not appreciate that decision of St. Thomas, had his brothers kidnap him from the Dominicans, lock him away in his family's castle for a number of months before they finally relented and let him go off to be a Dominican friar.
Well, it is such a fascinating story, and I know he believed it's possible to actually prove the existence of God. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, that's one of his famous things that people often reference, his 5 proofs for the existence of God. They're right there at the very beginning of the Summa Theologiae. We're not really sure he actually thought that they legitimately would prove to any non-believer that God existed. Even he himself later in life said that he thought nobody or very few people could come to understand the existence of God, and only after studying it for a long time and coming, and not without making a lot of errors or mistakes on the way. He always thought the best way to come to know God was through faith, that God revealing himself to the believer and coming to know God through prayer and scripture and the teachings of the church. Those 5 proofs, though, are not incidental. I mean, they are meant to demonstrate something, which is to demonstrate the relationship that the world has with God, that God is part and parcel of the very fabric and makeup of reality. He is existence itself. And so that none of us is really separated from him completely or entirely. And so that's a big part of St. Thomas's worldview, that God is not simply up there in the heavens and we down here, that he is both up there and also tremendously close and interior to us.
Yeah, that's so important. I understand that he never actually finished his work, Summa Theologiae. Can you talk a little bit more about that and why it wasn't finished?
Well, he had written a lot of things, and the Summa Theologiae is his master work. It has over 500 questions each with multiple articles, which are questions themselves. I think it's over 3,000 questions in the end, all very thoroughly answered and even responded to any possible objections you might come up with years later to his answers. He started that work later in his life, and by 1273 or so, he was already starting to fall ill. He had a couple of mystical experiences at the end of 1273, one of which left him so profoundly moved that he said to his contemporaries, he said, "What I have seen, what God has shown me, everything I have written seems like so much straw." And he himself died just 4 or 5 months later. So the Summa Theologiae was never completely finished, but there are so many other works of his that he wrote around the same time that we can venture to know or understand or think we might understand what he would have written had he finished the Summa.
Yeah, we're running out of time, unfortunately, maybe about 30 seconds left or so. But can you talk about how St. Thomas Aquinas still is relevant today?
Well, just very briefly, I would say he shows us that knowing who God is part and parcel of our spiritual life, and that knowing God is rational, is true, and is not something that is required only of stupid people. That being smart is to be Christian, is to be a true follower of Jesus Christ.
Well, Father Petri, thank you so much. Always so great to be with you, especially on this feast day. God bless you.
God bless, Tracy.